Welcome to a little watercolor instruction tutorial video experience thing. I'm going to be doing a two-color study. I'm going to be using quinacridone rose by M. Graham and ultramarine blue, also by M. Graham. And what I'm going to be doing is beginning with a very watery mix of quin rose going across the top. I'm going to paint a watery swatch in each of the top row rectangles. And that looks something like this. I can pick up a little paint there. I'm going to rinse out my brush in a different bucket, more sort of dirty rinse water, because I want to try, because this is a color study and I really want to get an accurate sense of what these particular paints are capable of and look like by themselves and unencumbered of other colors. I'm going to try to stay to use pretty clean water. This water, I think you can, this bucket of water that I'm using, I just used it and it has a tiny bit of quin rose in it. And if I had another water container, I might use that right now of clean water, but I can tell as I'm mixing this just water here over on my palette that is indeed not very pink at all. But it is good to try to make sure that you don't have other colors mixed in, especially when you're doing these color studies. So I'm going to do a similar thing with my ultramarine blue, and I'm going to do that across the bottom 3 rectangles. Let me see if that sort of seems watery enough. Yeah, there's a sneaky hair in there, so oh, he's still there. Okay, back to the painting. This is a black velvet brush by Silver Brush. It's a very nice brush. Holds a lot of water and color. So much so that you, depending on how big of an area you are painting, this is a number 12. You could cover pretty much a swatch like that. If this is new to you, it's very common and understandable to sort of try to come at it with a little bit more carefulness, a little bit more trying to be exact about it. Not necessarily a bad thing. Every one of these shapes I'm trying to come in to the pool. I'm tilting it, as you can tell, and trying to sponge up, soak up by the last amount of pooling watery color at the bottom of the shape. So now for this, I'm going to try to mix pretty much equal parts of the blue and the rose, and to try to get a nice middle violet. I'm just sort of grabbing some from one, bringing it to the other, seeing which seems to be right in the middle of the red and the blue. This is something that will take a decent amount of experience and just practice and study. Luckily, studying watercolors is really awesome. I'm going to go with that color. And like the top row and the bottom row, I'm keeping my color nice and watery. The mix is nice and watery, and that is both to just a sec, thirsty brush, soak it up. Making it watery, both to just understand the variety of colors I can get and the variety of different values I can get with any and all of these paints and mixes of these two colors. And the other thing that's helpful about starting off nice and light and watery is that it will allow me to adjust colors easier. If I get to the point where I have filled in everything and I really feel like that should be a little more red or a little bit more blue, that's easier to adjust if I keep them nice and light at the beginning. So let's see, I am sitting at a really awkward angle, so I'm going to shift a little bit. I'm going to try to make a reddish violet that's in between this and this, but still watery. That seems okay. I'm going to try that. Might be a little bit too far towards the red. I'm going to stick with it though. Hopefully one thing you're seeing is that, I've created a study here of five steps, but that is just for study's sake, and obviously there's an entire continuum between what kinds of colors you could mix with any two colors. And one of the whole points of this is to get familiar both with painting a nice flat swatch of an area, as well as getting familiar with this particular combination of two colors. And getting familiar and learning and training your eye with colors in general. I'm going to mix up a violet now that I'm trying to lean much more to the blue. I don't want it all the way blue, but I want it to be a blue violet. I'm going to try this here. Kind of like that. Seeming a little dark. I'll bring in a little bit of water. I'm going to pick up some of that color and shift you over here. So I think I said in class, this notion of mixing two colors is really not giving us enough credit for what we're working on or what we're trying to learn. Really, we're mixing three colors. You may say, wait a second. But what I mean by that is that we are also controlling the amount of water, trying to control the amount of water. Trying to control there. Woo! He didn't want to play. That's fine. These two colors, where was I? Controlling the amount of rose and ultramarine blue, but also the amount of water, which by definition is white. In this particular case, because the more water we're adding, the more white paper is showing through. So the more that white of the paper is in the mix. So there's several things that we're, I do try to acknowledge that, yeah, it's a tricky thing. Trying to get a sense for both what two colors will look like when they're mixed, but adding water into that mix is just another variable and another thing to understand. Anyways, there is my first go. I can tell that I'm sure I'll be adjusting things. But I'm going to let that dry and come back and do some more.